Trapped in the mirror. In 2002, Emma realizes her reflection in the mirror has a life of its own, plotting to take her place in the real world. Emma's footsteps echoed softly through the empty apartment, a symphony of solitude punctuated by the creaks of the old wooden floor. It was her first night in the new place, a charming yet slightly dilapidated apartment nestled in the heart of the city. The previous tenant, a reclusive artist, had left in a hurry, leaving behind a curious relic, an ornate full-length mirror framed in dark, intricately carved wood. The mirror stood like a silent guardian in the corner of her bedroom, its surface reflecting the moonlight that trickled through the half-open curtains. Emma, drawn to its antiquity, stood before it. She observed her reflection. A young graphic designer with aspirations as vast as the night sky, her hazel eyes reflecting a blend of excitement and apprehension. As she unpacked, her eyes kept drifting to the mirror. It was as though it whispered, beckoning her to look again. And when she did, something was amiss. Her reflection seemed to lag, just a fraction of a second behind her movements, like a shadow reluctant to follow its owner. She chalked it up to the exhaustion of moving and the eerie quiet of the new place. Later, as she prepared for bed, she gave the mirror one last glance. This time, she froze. Her reflection smiled back, but Emma hadn't smiled. A chill crept up her spine, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She blinked, and her reflection mimicked her, returning to normal. "Just my imagination," she muttered, though the seed of unease had been planted. As Emma slipped under the covers, the room darkened, save for the sliver of moonlight casting the mirror in a ghostly glow. The mirror stood there, silent, holding secrets in its silvered glass. An unspoken promise that this was just the beginning of something unfathomable. Hey, quick reminder. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more videos. The next morning greeted Emma with shafts of sunlight piercing through her curtains, scattering golden beams across her new room. It was a fresh start, a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of her life. Yet amidst this new beginning, the mirror stood, an enigmatic piece of her yesterday that seemed oddly out of place. As days melded into weeks, Emma's life found its rhythm in the bustling city. The mirror, however, continued to be a source of subtle disturbances. Some mornings, as she brushed her hair in front of it, she noticed her reflection sporting a different hairstyle or wearing clothes she didn't own. Each time, she rubbed her eyes or adjusted the light, dismissing these oddities as tricks of the mind, attributing them to the stress of adapting to her new life. But the changes grew bolder, harder to ignore. One evening, she stood before the mirror in her pajamas, only to see her reflection draped in an elegant evening gown, looking like it was ready for a gala. She stepped back, heart racing, her eyes locked with those of her other self, searching for an explanation in the familiar yet foreign gaze that stared back at her. Whispers seemed to emanate from the mirror at night, soft and unintelligible, like conversations happening in a distant room. Objects in her apartment shifted slightly from where she remembered placing them. A book here, a vase there. It was as if the mirror was slowly seeping into her reality, blurring the lines between reflection and truth. Emma started to question her sanity, wondering if the isolation of her new life was taking a toll on her. Yet, deep down, a part of her knew it was something else, something far more sinister. The mirror, with its dark, ornate frame and its ancient glass, was not just reflecting her image. It was altering her reality, one subtle change at a time. In the dim light of dawn, Emma's eyes flickered open, drawn to the mirror that now seemed like an ominous presence in her room. The events of the previous night lingered in her mind, a surreal dance of doubt and fear. She approached the mirror hesitantly, half expecting her reflection to spring to life. To her astonishment, it did. "Hello, Emma." The reflection spoke, its voice an uncanny echo of her own, yet laced with a timbre of something ancient and otherworldly. The figure in the mirror was her, yet not her. It stood with an eerie grace, its eyes holding galaxies of unspoken stories. "I am Elara," it continued, its gaze piercing through the glass. "I am what you see, yet I am trapped in a realm you cannot fathom. A world within your world, a mirror dimension." Emma's breath caught in her throat, her initial fear mingling with a fascinated curiosity. Why are you here? What do you want from me?" Elara's smile was a blend of melancholy and longing. "I have been a silent observer for centuries, bound to the reflections of those who possess the mirror. But I yearn for more. I desire to experience your world, to step beyond this glass prison." A shiver ran down Emma's spine. The idea was ludicrous, yet the sincerity in Elara's voice was palpable. "How?" Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper. "A temporary exchange," Elara proposed. "Let me live through you just for a day. In return, I offer you insights into the mysteries of my world, a glimpse of the extraordinary." Emma stared into the mirror, her mind racing. The prospect was terrifying, yet alluring. In the depths of the glass, she saw a reflection of her own adventurous spirit, a mirror of her deepest desires. The line between reality and illusion blurred as she considered the unthinkable proposition. Could she dare to step into a world beyond her own, to release a reflection with intentions as enigmatic as the universe itself? In the muted light of dawn, Emma stood before the mirror, her gaze locked with that of her reflection, Elara. The entity within the mirror had a persuasive voice, soft yet insistent, like a siren song. "Just one day," Elara pleaded, "to feel the sun, to breathe the air." Her eyes, identical to Emma's yet imbued with an ancient longing, were hard to resist. A pact was made, a decision that sent a ripple of apprehension through Emma. "One day," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. The air around the mirror shimmered, a spectral dance of light and shadow. In a heartbeat, their places were exchanged. Emma, now a prisoner in the glass, and Elara, free in the physical world. Emma's new world was a distorted echo of her own. The room was the same yet different, the colors duller, the sounds mere whispers. She could see her apartment, watch Elara exploring her life with a childlike wonder and a touch of malice. Elara, wearing Emma's guise, moved with an uncanny grace. She traced her fingers over the fabrics, the furniture, absorbing each sensation. Her reflection in the mirror no longer existed, a freedom that brought a wicked smile to her lips. In this mirrored realm, Emma discovered the echoes of others, souls lost and forgotten. They whispered to her, voices filled with regret and warnings. "Elara is a trickster," they said, "a spirit bound to the mirror for sins of old." They spoke of their own folly, of how they too had been lured by promises and trapped in reflective limbo. As the day unfolded, Emma watched helplessly as Elara reveled in her newfound liberty. Each hour that passed was a torment, a gnawing fear that the switch might become permanent. The mirror, once an object of beauty, now stood as a barrier, a cold, unyielding threshold between two worlds. Emma realized the gravity of her mistake, the weight of the unsettling alliance she had forged. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fire and night, she began to plan. There had to be a way to reverse the swap, to regain her life and trap Elara once more. The night was long, and in the silence of the mirror world, Emma plotted. The morning sun spilled its golden light through the windows, painting the room in a warm, welcoming hue. But for Emma, trapped behind the cool, reflective surface of the mirror, the world felt distant and unreal. She watched, a silent spectator, as Elara, wearing her body like an ill-fitting suit, stretched languidly, marveling at the sensation of sunlight on skin. Elara moved through the apartment with a curious grace, her movements exaggerated, almost theatrical, as if she were testing the limits of her new physical form. She ran her fingers over the mundane objects of Emma's life, the softness of the sofa fabric, the smooth surface of the wooden table, the cold metallic feel of the kitchen appliances. Each touch, each interaction, was a revelation, a sensory feast after a famine of decades. Outside, the city was a pulsating symphony of sights and sounds, a stark contrast to the silent world of reflections Elara had known. She walked the streets with a childlike wonder, her eyes wide with fascination at the hustle and bustle around her. People cast curious glances at her, noting the oddity of her gait and the intensity of her gaze. At a cafe, she ordered a coffee, the bitter taste making her grimace, then smile. She reveled in the simple act of conversation with the barista, her laughter too loud, her joy uncontained. She roamed through parks and streets, touching trees, marveling at the texture of leaves, the feeling of grass underfoot. But beneath the veneer of wonder, there was a manipulative intent. Elara flirted recklessly, sowing seeds of discord among Emma's friends, her behavior increasingly erratic and daring. She was a storm dressed as a whisper, leaving a trail of confusion and chaos in her wake. Meanwhile, Emma, a prisoner in her own home, watched helplessly as Elara, in her guise, began to unravel the carefully woven tapestry of her life. Each of Elara's actions was a thread pulled, a stitch undone, in the fabric of Emma's existence. In the silvered realm of the mirror, Emma found herself a prisoner in a world reversed. The apartment, her sanctuary, now appeared as a ghostly echo, its every detail mirrored and untouchable. She was alone, save for the faint, distorted sounds from the other side, a world she could see but not touch. Time in the mirror world felt disjointed, stretching and compressing in ways that defied logic. Emma watched, heart aching, as Elara, wearing her face, her life, moved through her apartment with unsettling ease. The once familiar space now seemed alien, a stage upon which a stranger performed. Desperate to reach out, Emma pressed her hands against the cold, hard surface, her fingers tracing the contours of a reality just beyond her reach. She tried to call out, to warn the outside world of the imposter, but her voice was lost, absorbed by the glass that imprisoned her. In this eerie solitude, Emma encountered the other trapped souls, spectral remnants of those who had fallen victim to the mirror before her. Their whispers filled the air, tales of deceit and betrayal by the entity that was Elara. Each story was a piece of a horrifying puzzle, revealing the true extent of the danger she had unwittingly unleashed. Her efforts to communicate with the outside world proved futile. Gestures, screams, even the written word on the mirror's surface. Nothing breached the barrier. It was a world of silent screams and unheeded warnings. As Emma observed Elara's machinations, a slow simmering rage began to build within her. The mirror, once a gateway to a curious adventure, had become a prison, a pane of glass that separated her from her very essence. She realized that to reclaim her life, she would need to outwit Elara, to turn the mirror's power against itself. In the depths of despair, Emma began to plot, to plan her escape from this reflected purgatory. Her resolve hardened. She would not be just another whisper in the glass. The world outside the mirror had shifted into an eerie stillness, like the calm before a storm. Emma, trapped in the glass prison, watched helplessly as Elara, wearing her body like a stolen dress, wove a deceptive web in her life. It started subtly. Elara, with Emma's face, began rearranging the threads of her life. At work, she infused Emma's designs with a strange, unsettling edge, alienating her colleagues with her newfound eccentricity. Friends recoiled from her altered demeanor, her laughter too sharp, her gaze too piercing. Emma pounded on the cold, reflective barrier, her shouts silent to the outside world. Then came the night of revelation, under the luminescent glow of the moon. Elara stood before the mirror, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "You're so naive, Emma," she whispered, her voice a twisted echo of Emma's own. "Did you really think I'd give up this chance? This body, this life? It's mine now." The cruel truth hit Emma like a wave. Elara never intended to switch back. The mirror world, with its trapped souls and shadowed corners, was to be her eternal abode. She watched as Elara, as herself, spun lies and deceit, unraveling the life she had painstakingly built. Desperation clawed at Emma's heart. She scoured the memories of the trapped souls, seeking any knowledge of reversing their fates. Whispers of a ritual, a chance for salvation began to take shape in her mind. It was a sliver of hope in the engulfing darkness. As Elara's true colors bled into Emma's reality, staining it with malice, Emma clung to the hope of that ritual. It was more than a mere chance, it was a necessity. In the depths of despair, she found a resolve as hard as the glass that imprisoned her. She would fight. She would reclaim her life. The mirror, once a symbol of truth and clarity, now held a distorted, malevolent reflection. And Emma knew the battle to restore its purity had just begun. In the shadowy realm of the mirror, time moved like molasses, each second stretching into eternity. Emma, trapped in the silvery purgatory, paced before the glass, her reflection a ghostly echo of her former self. The mirror world was a prison of reflections and refracted light, a world that was hers but not quite. Her mind was a whirlwind of desperation and fear, thoughts racing as she desperately sought a way to reclaim her life from Elara. The other trapped souls, mere whispers in the glass, spoke of an ancient ritual, a sliver of hope in the darkness. It was a gambit, risky and shrouded in uncertainty, but Emma clung to it like a lifeline. The ritual, they said, required the alignment of the moon, a celestial event that would amplify the mirror's power. The lunar eclipse was approaching, a rare occurrence that Emma could not afford to miss. In the mirror world, the eclipse would cast a shadow, a temporary weakness in the barrier that separated the two realities. Emma gathered the necessary elements, her movements fluid and determined. She traced symbols on the glass, ancient runes that hummed with an energy she could almost feel. The other souls, their voices hushed and ethereal, guided her hands, sharing their collective knowledge passed down through ages of captivity. As the night of the eclipse approached, Emma's heart raced with anticipation. She could feel the air in the mirror world charged with an electric tension, a tangible buzz that promised change. The moon began its slow dance across the sky, and as its shadow began to creep across the mirror's surface, Emma initiated the ritual. The mirror trembled under her touch, the air thick with power and danger. Elara, sensing the shift, fought back with ferocity from the other side, her actions rippling through the mirror's surface. Emma's resolve hardened. This was a battle not just for her freedom, but for her very soul. The night of the lunar eclipse cloaked the world in an eerie half-light, a perfect canvas for the extraordinary. Emma, her spirit a tapestry of determination and fear, stood before the mirror in the otherworldly realm. It was time for the ritual, her only chance to reclaim her life from Elara. The mirror world, a shadowy reflection of her apartment, buzzed with a strange energy. The souls trapped with her, once mere whispers, now rallied around her cause. Emma could feel their collective yearning for freedom, their hopes pinned on her desperate plan. In her hands, she held the artifacts required for the ritual. A silver comb tarnished with age, a candle flickering with a blue flame, and a locket containing a strand of her hair, the physical link to her own world. She placed them carefully in front of the mirror, her hands trembling slightly. As the eclipse reached its zenith, Emma began chanting the ancient incantation she had learned from the whispers of the lost souls. The words felt heavy on her tongue, a language forgotten by time but understood by the universe. The air thickened, charged with magic, as the candle's blue flame danced wildly, casting elongated shadows. Outside in the real world, Emma could sense Elara's panic. The malevolent reflection tried to disrupt the ritual, her hands pounding against the glass, her screams a distant thunder. But Emma continued, her voice steady, her resolve unbreakable. The mirror began to ripple like the surface of a disturbed pond, the boundary between the worlds thinning. Emma reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, liquid-like surface. The trapped souls swirled around her, their energy merging with the spell. With a final heart-wrenching chant, Emma pushed her hand through the mirror, the barrier giving way like a shattered window. The worlds collided, the ritual reaching its crescendo as Emma and Elara were consumed by a blinding light. In that moment, amidst the chaos of bending realities, Emma held on to a single thought, her unwavering desire to return home. The lunar eclipse cast a haunting glow over the city, its crimson light seeping into Emma's apartment, enveloping the room in an otherworldly hue. In the heart of this surreal night, the mirror stood ominously, a portal between worlds, now pulsating with an unseen energy. Emma, trapped within its glassy confines, felt the power of the eclipse resonating with the mirror. Her heart raced with both fear and hope as she began the ritual, the words of the ancient incantation spilling from her lips in a hushed, fervent whisper. The trapped souls around her, echoes of the past, joined in, their voices a spectral chorus accompanying her plea. Outside, in Emma's stolen body, Elara sensed the shift. Her eyes, once filled with triumph, now widened in panic. She lunged towards the mirror, intent on shattering it, on silencing the voices that dared defy her. But the mirror's surface rippled like water, absorbing her blows, resilient and unyielding. Inside the mirror, the ritual reached its crescendo. Emma's voice rose, powerful and clear, cutting through the darkness. The mirror's frame trembled, the carvings twisting and writhing as if alive. A blinding light erupted, engulfing both worlds. Then silence. Emma opened her eyes. She was lying on her bedroom floor, her body her own once more. She scrambled to her feet, her gaze locking onto the mirror. It was quiet, the turmoil gone, but the glass was no longer reflective. It was opaque, a barrier forever sealing Elara's world away from hers. The relief that washed over Emma was palpable, yet it was tinged with an unspoken fear. She approached the mirror, her fingers trembling as they traced the no-still carvings. With every ounce of strength she had left, she pushed the mirror over. It crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces, each shard an echo of the nightmare she had endured. As dawn broke, Emma stood amidst the fragments of her ordeal, the first light of morning promising a new beginning. Yet, as she turned away, a faint whisper lingered in the air, a reminder that some reflections once cast never truly fade away. We have come to the end of our story. Subscribe and like the video so as not to miss the videos that we will upload in the future. Tell me, what do you think about this story in the comments? I'll see you in the next story.